You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hello, gorgeous soul. It is Alex. We are here for day 28 out of 28 for our Flowing with Your Cycle series. Thank you so much for joining me. We are coming to a close for this one, and it's been so lovely to do this. And today we're going to end up with something really fun. Though I will say that for some of you, this will come very easily. For some of you, it will be a little bit more of a mental challenge, and we'll talk about why that is. But either way, it's vitally important that we end on this topic, because right now you're in that transition between wrapping up something and going to the next. And it is so common that we do this where we put in so much work, we put in a lot of time and effort, we use our vital energy to do something really amazing for ourselves, and then we get to some kind of ending component of it, right? There's more to come, but we come to an end of a chapter of that story, and then we're like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, whatever, next one, what's next, right? And you probably, if you think back, do this all the time with stuff. Like, you really want a job, and so you apply and you work and you interview and you put feelers out and you make LinkedIn profiles, and then you get a job and you're like, cool, okay, I have a job. Like, oh, I'm not getting up to speed fast enough, right? Then it's like the new problem comes. Or, oh, I want a house. You know, you do look up the house and you get a realtor and you work with them and you apply for the loan and you get a house and you're like, oh, cool, how am I going to decorate it? Oh, I don't like how it looks. There's no stopping and saying, okay, here's the end of a segment that I've been working on, and then here is the start of the next one. And when we practice doing that within our cycle, it starts to build the habit of actually celebrating and taking note of how far we've come, even when we are perfectly fine acknowledging this is not the end of this particular story. And usually, I mean, there are some things that truly end, but isn't it also true that most things in life just become something different and new, right? So does the story really truly end, or is it just looking like a different thing? So either way, celebrating along the way makes the story read in a much more different way, right? If you just go on to the next thing without any appreciation, you're losing the opportunity to build self-worth, self-trust, self-appreciation, that the trust in your own self to make the decisions, show up for yourself, be empowered, that then guides more things to happen, right? Many of us are making choices about love, our career, about our health from a place of fear. And when we combine, kind of give the antidote of fear of celebration and self-appreciation, it builds our personal power to really say, yeah, there can be things that happen. And I am dealing with it because I love myself enough to do so. And in reality, we always generally love ourselves enough to do things about it. But if we don't have the awareness and we actually stop and think, oh, hey, I chose me in this sense. I worked on me because I'm worthy of it. I deserve a life that I like living. and that I feel really good in, and I'm proud of that. It's not that all the stars line up, you finish all of your stories at once, and then boom, your life is like idyllic and perfect, and then you just coast along. If you've met someone like that, please introduce me. I'd love to talk to them. But many of us, no matter how kind of great that we are at meeting our goals, the thing is there's always going to be more goals and other things that we want, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's kind of the point. So, in that sense, then, if we keep holding out for the celebration of everything to be lined up, we're going to keep waiting for a really long time. And unfortunately, what happens is that because we put off the celebration for so long, then it reinforces the doubt. It reinforces the fear. It reinforces the concept of I'll never get there. Right? There's nothing to say, look how far I've come. Let me honor this. Let me celebrate it. And in doing so, reinforce my own power of making this happen. And then people are much less likely to give up from that place. And when you just step back from your actual the details of the problems that you see in your life, isn't that true? I mean, it's not at the start of a race that you feel like giving up. It's if you're running a race and you keep falling behind and you keep getting laughed by people. It's that kind of stuff that drags it out, and you just keep feeling like, oh no, oh no, oh no, and you get smaller and smaller and smaller, and the power behind your actions and your decisions correspondingly also gets smaller. Whereas when we celebrate and we say, I stand in the power, I stand behind what I just did. I know I'm not done, right? But I am fully appreciating, and maybe we can't even say in the beginning fully, but at least I'm beginning to appreciate, and eventually I do fully appreciate just how much it took for me to get to where I am right now. And then it's super motivating, right? You see this playing out in kids all the time. They're playing a game. When they're doing poorly, they don't want to play the game anymore. When they're doing well, they're like, let's play that again. This is awesome. And we look at that and we say, well, I have real adult problems, right? I can't actually do that. But the actual human response is kind of the same, because when we feel defeated, what is your opportunity? What is that launching pad setting you up for? It's probably kind of a weenie one. It's probably not super robust, and there's not going to be that power behind, yeah, I'm going to get after that next thing, right? Phase one is about to start next day from an aligned, powerful place. That launching pad is vastly different. The one that says, wow, all this transpired in 28 days. I had all of these realizations about myself. I understand myself better. I understand why I make decisions the way I do. I understand why I communicate the way that I do. I understand that these beliefs drive the choices and the emotions that I make and feel. When you do that kind of look, all of a sudden, look at how much wholeness there is in that. You're basically saying, these are all the different parts of me, and this is what I've done with them, and now I have this higher vantage point that brings it all together. That is motivating. There is something very, very powerful at seeing yourself like that. And then, as we really take the time to appreciate it and celebrate it, then when other things happen, maybe things don't go as planned, or someone comes oversteps a boundary, that launching pad of alignment and power that you have, you make a different call. You make a different call at that time. So, for example, my partner and I taught him this, so this is not his fault. We would make kind of deprecating jokes and comments about the state of my health when I was in pain and having a lot of I had my premature ovarian failure and infertility and failed IVF and all of that stuff, right? So we would do that kind of thing. And then eventually I started doing this work in celebration, and I began to change my own dialogue in my head. And then it was so apparent when he would echo the sentiment that I taught him, right? Then it helped me so much to say, I've come so far. Like, it's so apparent to me now that when you say that, my brain just is like, wait a second, we're not doing that anymore, right? This comes back to yesterday's podcast. We're not doing that anymore. And then with that awareness, I could say, here's a boundary I have. We collectively are not talking about me in this way at all. This is not what I want. This is not where I'm going. That does not jive with who I am being as a healthy, pain free, joyful person. And then it was easier for him to understand what I was about and to respect that boundary. And all of a sudden, hey, look, that problem is just gone. Right. So this is what it does. This isn't celebration for the sake of like patting yourself on the back and telling the world about how great you are, though I really encourage you to do that. But it's not really about anyone else seeing it. You can celebrate it outwardly. That's cool. I think that's awesome. And if you have a lot of resistance to that, I actually encourage you to do that, right? However, if that's not the goal is really appreciation internally that will then have external manifestations of the expression. Now, this two different tracks that some people, likely because of the environment that they grew up in, there's more comfort in celebrating yourself, right? If that's you, cool. I would even say celebrate the fact that you feel it's easy to celebrate yourself. That's a really powerful thing to have. Cool. So appreciate that as part of it. If you don't, many of us grew up with very critical parents. Maybe they were doing it out of love, maybe not. It doesn't matter. But the end result is then we're kind of like, well, I feel weird appreciating me. I feel like I don't deserve that because I didn't meet my goal. Like, what evidence am I supposed to use for that? Right? If that's the case, this is where internally celebrating without necessarily saying it out loud can be an important first step, right? Because it it brings in another layer of feelingness around it when we involve other people. As over time, you can actually begin to celebrate, like, hey, last cycle, I really just internally appreciated the work that I did. And if it's available to you and it's not going to actually take away from the celebration, if it's internally just quietly doing something for yourself that feels good. Now, I think a lot of times people go to like, oh, I like self-care stuff. Oh, I have to take a bath, or I have to get my nails done, or I have to get a massage. It can totally be those things, but it really can be like, I'm celebrating by, I don't want to keep working and it's 3 p.m. Like, right, if you have a business, like today I'm celebrating by ending a little early, putting away my phone and doing X. Like it can be something that isn't a gift for yourself or an activity per se. You can just modify slightly something in your world, but if it's meaningful and feels like a celebration to you, do it. If it's a dance party in the bathroom alone, that's what you got, that's cool. It completely does not matter how you celebrate as long as you celebrate and whatever that looks to you. So it can be tiny, especially if you have a lot of resistance. Now, if you have a lot of resistance, though, I highly encourage you consider that the next phase one, because that is a portion of kind of self-worth, self-appreciation that can become an actual targeted goal for us, right? We oftentimes start with, oh, I want to change my diet. Then we get to the end of the cycle, and when we truly understand it, all of a sudden it becomes like, the diet is going to fall into place when I'm being my true authentic self and living in appreciation and power of that, making the decisions from that place. Then the food is just kind of food choices you make every time you feel like eating. It's not actually a big deal. And that's why we have in our health transformation accelerator, it's a program that you can repeat cycle after, or not cycle, I don't mean the period cycle, but we're going to run it multiple times a year, and it can be repeated because all of this builds on itself. Right? You start with the actual practicality of things, and then you realize what are the actual true aspects of myself that keep me from experiencing what I want in the actual tangible things. So if we keep mucking around in the tangible things, it can be kind of slow. But as we go through this process, all of a sudden, if next month isn't, oh, I'm going to not eat cookies, and it goes to, I'm going to really explore and focus on what it looks like to have self love and appreciation, that right there, my friend, is one of the most powerful transitions to make. And then all of the other stuff, I can say from this vantage point that I have, having done this for years, is that the wholeness is so much more of a catalyst for changing the other aspects of it, like what we do day to day, that that's where I go every time now. It's like all of the other details work themselves out. That is for sure. It's the wholeness and really figuring out what it is that's going on for us. That's the whole key. And so here we are on day 28. What do you see? What is next? And you don't have to do that today. Today is just for celebration. But as it comes up, this is going to be an opportunity for self reflection when you get to day one tomorrow. And now you're geared up for the next thing. Right? So I hope you go do something super fun for you, whatever that looks like. I would actually love to see what you did. If you could screenshot this and share on Instagram, like tag us so I can see. I would love to kind of see what you came up with, what was going on. Obviously, if this is very new for you and it's all internal, you don't have to put it on social media. Just email us or whatever, support at Zesty Ginger. Let us know if you want to, or just beam it over to me in thought, and I will bask in it. But essentially, this is I'm so proud of you. If you are here on day 28 and you've been taking the action and you're like, I see how this applies cycle after cycle, and just how much I'm in control and have power in my life and can determine all of this stuff, like how it's going to go. I'm so proud of you. Holy cow. I hope that you are proud of yourself. I know that sometimes when we're in it, we can't fully see that, but I can promise you that when you look back, you will amaze yourself. This is just some of the coolest work to do, because all of a sudden this is like the first time a lot of us, I know for me, with how bad my self-esteem and self-worth were, I never had the experience like I do now where I actually look around and I'm like, oh my gosh, it didn't look pretty at the time, but I did all of that. Like, I actually made the choices for myself. And then that real celebration and appreciation, it has changed the game so much. Now I'm coming from that place more and more. I still have a lot of work to do. And that's okay, because I'm celebrating getting there, and therefore I don't have to keep holding out on the joy until I'm in this perfect place. And you can hear how that won't even truly be available to me, because if I don't have the self-worth, how can I say I reached all my goals? If I can't actually appreciate myself for getting there doesn't have a whole lot of meaning, because then there has to be something else that happens that proves your self-worth to you. Start now. Start the process, and you'll see how that changes your actual experience moving forward. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. I love you. Thank you. I cannot express how grateful I am that you are here and that you've been listening, that you've been following along, that you are sharing with me. I know I keep saying that, but I just feel like I can't even express it in words enough to let you know how much I appreciate it. So thank you. I'm sending you lots of love, big hugs, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.
Thanks for coming out to hang with us on the podcast. It is our goal to transform the way women are treated in healthcare. And we need your help. We need your help to get the word out. We have a lofty goal of 1 million downloads. And we know that as this podcast grows, we're going to be able to reach more women, get more amazing speakers for you, and bring the most cutting-edge information.
If you found these pod classes helpful, please take a moment to text 5 women you know the link to the series. We appreciate your help so much. Can't wait to see you next time.